Hi, so in this video we're going to talk about whether or not you should be seeking help for limerence and what kind of help you should be looking for. Hi, my name is Marius. I'm a counselling psychology doctoral student living in London, and on this channel we talk about psychology, mental health and anything I think you might find interesting or useful. Remember, social media is not a replacement for therapy. Right, so today I've talked a lot about limerence on this channel, and just full disclosure, I do offer coaching support for people with limerence, so this video is also about communicating that, and the link is the description. You can check that out after watching the video. Thank you very much. But I do want to talk about more generally, if people want to work with me, great, but if people want to work with others, or they have to because they want to work with someone in person and they're not in London, then I'd like to give some pointers as to what might be helpful. So we're going to broadly talk about three categories. One is therapist, second is coach, third is social, and of course independent work, but a lot of this channel also talks about limerence from the self perspective, and having a third person perspective, so someone who's on the outside of the situation completely and from your life, does give you unique perspective, but also having a sense of community within your own social group is really important too. So we'll start with therapists. I think anyone who is going through limerence should think about going to see a therapist. What kind they see, personally, and this is not professional advice, you should seek advice from a licensed practitioner in your own country for this. This is just my opinion. You should go for someone who is on the more talk therapy side of things. So CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, is useful for dismantling behaviors and core beliefs. And that stuff, if you're quite practical and you just want to get down and kind of address the behavioral issues, you might want to go for that. I think that has its place. But personally, I think talking about what has brought you to where you are and why this specific person has been idealized as a limerent object, so maybe humanistic psychodynamic approaches might be the way to go. Now, how do you find out? You should just look at the profile of the practitioner you are thinking of working with, or just sort of reach out to them. You don't need to know too much about the jargon of psychotherapy per se, but you do want to get a feel for their inclination, like how do they approach stuff in psychotherapy. So CBT is very here and now, focusing on the feeling here and now and addressing them in a systematic way by going through the thoughts that are maladaptive, that are not helping you, and addressing behaviors to make sure they're more in line with what you want rather with what you don't want. And so it's kind of like, I guess, top down. So you're looking at the behavior and then working backwards, the feeling now and working backwards. Whereas psychodynamic, humanistic, and other kind of talk therapy type stuff is more, who are you? How did you end up here? How can we work on that foundational knowledge and start to heal from the inside out almost? So I would say that one way to go when it comes to talking therapy. Now, if it's going to be online or in person, if you can do in person, I personally prefer it as a therapist. And when I've been a client, I've also preferred it. Now, if someone is better suited to your style and they're online, I would say just go for the online, because that therapeutic relationship between you and the therapist is going to be more important than whether or not you're in the same room together. But again, if you can do it in person, that's even more ideal. So now with coaching, I offer coaching, not therapy, online, because there's only certain ways you can provide therapy online in other countries, so you have to be licensed in those countries really. And rather than get into all that, I just offer everyone coaching, and that just makes it really simple, uniform, and the terms and conditions on my website are how that is set out. Whereas with therapists, you have to adhere to certain ethical guidelines, and even though I'm training in that and I follow those when I work as a therapist in the UK as part of my doctoral program as a trainee, I of course operate in the way that I believe is ethical. It's just, it wouldn't be right for me during my training to be saying that I adhere to those ethics when I'm not being qualified or licensed yet. So anyway, if you are going for a coach, I would suggest you go with someone who specifically knows about limerence. Now, there are not that many out there. I think probably a handful in the world who say that I've seen, but if you know of them, please put them in the description below, because I would like to hear about people who either are actually therapists or coaches who specialize in limerence and offer services as well as some people have written books. I would like to hear about it. So if you know who they are, please put their names down in the description. But with that, relationship coaches can also be useful. Stuff around mindfulness, I think, can be useful to pull away from the maladaptive daydreaming. I think mindfulness also is going to be useful for people who are really stuck in the fantasizing and the daydreaming that comes along with limerence. So if there is a coach or other support worker who does work with mindfulness, body-based stuff, I think can be really useful too. I think be as clear as you can about what limerence is before you go and speak to them, because if you go to them and say, hey, have you heard of limerence? They say no. It would be better if you can describe in specific terms, like, this is how it presents for me. These are the big problems. Do you think you can help? And then go from there. As with any kind of support that you might get from any of these types of people, make sure that you are patient when it comes to choosing someone who you're going to work with long term, because you may have to switch a few times. Not everyone is trained in the same way. Not everyone has the same personality, of course. So you can't expect, well, I tried one therapist and I didn't like the way she worked or he worked, so I'm not going to try therapy again. Oh, I tried a coach and same argument. That's not how this works. You should be routinely kind of reviewing, is this working, is it not, am I being challenged? It doesn't mean that you're always comfortable. They're not always going to make you happy, and it's not all happy-go-lucky type work, of course, but you should feel comfortable opening up to this person, and you should feel free to communicate what your goals are, and also have this practitioner adapt to your specific situation so that you're working collaboratively. That's really important, that you work collaboratively. So the final group I'd say is your social group and friends. Now, this one is a bit tricky because it's hard to talk about limerence with your friends because of how a lot of the time it comes with a lot of shame. It's difficult to describe exactly how difficult limerence is to go through and the symptoms and everything. So if you really trust certain people and you think that you can open up to them, that's wonderful, and do so to the degree that you feel comfortable. But being part of the community online can be quite resourceful, with some caveats, and I made a separate video on that you can watch afterwards. But there's a lot of stuff just said about limerence online that is very generalized. It's kind of simplified, and also I think it omits the fact that there's not that much scientific backing for treatments for limerence, etc. So take everything with a pinch of salt, but being part of the communities and connecting with your friends in meaningful ways is going to help. Now, does that mean you talk about the limerence all the time? No, because that's going to get incredibly dull for anyone who you share that with. Now, I'm sorry to say that, because I know that can come across quite harsh, but the truth is, you're probably quite bored of the fact that you're going through limerence in a way, like you're also suffering intensely, so you're keen to just understand it and get through it. But remember, a separate person may not be able to hear the same exact thing over and over. And as you'll know, limerence is incredibly repetitive with regards to what you think you want, the seeking behaviors, the intrusive thoughts, and all the rest. So sharing this with someone in a way that's going to be considerate of them as well is going to be helpful. Now, if you get a coach or a therapist, you don't have to worry about that. You can just express as much as you want, which is why I do recommend going with one of those two approaches. But when it comes to your personal network, try and, of course, with the relationships you already have, connect with people in the way you can. And if that means expressing limerence in some other way so that they can still be sympathetic towards you, but you don't have to go into all of the details, then that's fine. But you can also go to the online communities where people talk about limerence, what they've gone through, if they're going through it there and then. And those are all, there's Reddit, Facebook, of course, YouTube, but with a pinch of salt. Yeah, always. So if you are looking for help with limerence, drop a comment down in the comment section, and I'll see if I can help you out with what kind of help you could seek. So I provide this information as information only, so you can start to think about what kind of decisions you want to make. These roles are not there to give you advice, right? They're here to help you explore. You are the person taking the action. You decide for yourself. So anything any of these professionals tell you should just be information helping you explore, helping you open up to this experience, not advice in terms of do this, do that, do this, and then you won't have limerence, because that's not likely to work in all reality. It's better to develop some sort of reflective practice on your own if that's all you think you can do right now. But if you can seek support from someone else, I think that can be massively useful. Okay, so hopefully that helped, and I'll see you soon. Take care, look after yourself.